What's up guys, Jar here, back with another video, and this is a little different video than usual. Basically, I'll be talking about how ecom is rigged and how to essentially cheat the game. So first, I want to delve into a post that Alex Hormozi made last month. Basically, what he said in this post is, no matter what career path you pick in life, it will be hard. So pick something that pays better. And this was something that really stuck to me. And I'll kind of delve deeper into this. So the first concept that we want to talk about is the idea of tailwinds versus headwinds, right? So with tailwinds, right, this is a pretty good example, right? If you have the wind to your back, then it's tailwind. If you have the wind to your nose or your head, that's a headwind. And essentially, there's different categories in different industries and different trends that have these essentially tailwinds and headwinds. It's very important that we choose the right, i.e. career path, industry, category, things of that nature, right? So I'll give you guys an example, right? So this is a search demand by Google Trends over the last, 10, 20 years, 20 years. And as you can see here, this is just for the search term newspaper. And as you can see, year over year, there's a steep decline, right, in the trend for newspapers, right? So if you were to start a newspaper company, right, then essentially you would just be losing on, all fronts. You would be struggling to get revenue, get clients, and even just survive, right? And then same thing with CDs, right? If you were to manufacture CDs or sell CDs or have any business related with CDs, you will see that same effect. So it's very important that we, understand overall macroeconomic trends and where everything is headed. Right now, AI is big talks, right? Everything dealing with AI, that's going to see macro growth. And I'll kind of show you guys like the kind of trends that are prevalent, right? So basically, I'm just using Google Trends, right? And basically, where you go here, you just type in a search term. Let's type in Pilates, for example. Let's see the overall demand of Pilates over the past 5 years. As you can see, nice steady curve uptick in Pilates. So if you started a Pilates brand, right, as you can see, nice little curve here. If you started a Pilates brand, right, you would have the market, essentially acting as a tailwind. Right now, granted, you don't know if this is a trend, but as you can see, this is, nice steady growth, right? And then you can look at things like creatine and other things like that nature. I believe creatine had explosive growth as well. Oh, as you can see, it's kind of actually stagnant. But yeah, just like Pilates, that's a good example. That's why it's kind of important to really understand what type of industry you're in. Oh, that's creative. What the hell? I'm tweaking. Creatine. Yeah. Creatine. Yeah. There you go. More so aligns with Pilates. As you can see, nice strong growth in the recent years. But yeah, really analyzing what market you are in and analyzing what category you're in and what game you're ultimately playing, right? So I just finished up this book. It's called How to Make a Few $1 Billion by Brad Jacobs. He's a deca-billionaire. And basically one quote that I pulled from his book that I really liked a lot was essentially, you can mess up a lot of things in business and still do well as long as you get the big trend right. So he did, multiple $1 billion in revenue and profit through multiple different industries and companies. And essentially, he just had the right category in the right time, right? So he had the right category in the right timing. And just piggybacking off of this, right? Just making sure that you're in the right actual category, in the right industry, in the right trend. It's very important that you pick the actual, key characteristics, that make a successful brand, right? So just breaking down to what you ultimately want to ladder up to, and that is for most people just the ability to have free cash flow and have the overall high profit volume, right? So some characteristics of a very profitable ecom direct-to-consumer brand in 2026 is number one, first order profitable, right? So you have the ability to acquire customers on a, contribution margin to positive basis, so you're not losing money on the first order. You have strong LTV capture, right? So whether you're CPG product subscription, you can capture LTV, and you have a clear plan and strategy on reactivating customers, because that's really where the bulk of your profit is going to lie in, just that LTV capture, right? Because it's cheaper to market to people you already sold to before. Low fixed expenses, right? So low OpEx. This is a key as well, and that's especially the leverage with direct to consumer is the ability to run a lean, tight operational ship in the sense that you can have contractors, you can have all these AI, with the introduction of CloudBot and things of that nature. You can have these low overhead expenses and really clean up and clear up, make space for the P&L, and increase your ability to spend on Meta, and high gross profit percentages, ideally over 70% plus, right? So these are kind of the characteristics, right, of a brand, and really what this breaks down to is the idea of 4-quarter accounting. And basically in 4-quarter accounting, right, you kind of break up your P&L into these different buckets, right? Cost of delivery, CAC, OpEx, EBITDA, right? So essentially, within your actual accounting P&L, right, when you're looking at your P&L, right, cost of delivery is essentially all your marketing costs. So you can essentially think of this as your MER, right? Your CAC, or I meant your CAC. I usually have CAC up here. That's why it kind of threw me off. But erase what I just said. But CAC is your MER. CAC is what are your marketing costs. Cost of delivery is essentially all the costs that go into delivering your product, your cost of goods sold, your variable expenses, your other variable expenses like transaction fees, shipping and handling, things of that nature, not including your marketing, right? And then your OpEx, this is your fixed overhead, if you have employees on salary, if you have rent, things of that nature, right? And essentially, you take the aggregate of these, right, which is 70%, and then you subtract that from 100% and take the inverse, and then basically you get to your EBITDA. And this is basically what a healthy e-commerce direct-to-consumer brand looks like. And then basically you can kind of map this out, right? So ideally, this is kind of like where you would want to be if you were trying to, drive as much, volume as possible, profit volume. But if you were trying to, maintain active growth, but still have a healthy bottom line, 15% is really where you want to be. So you can kind of pour that all the way back into either your CAC or invest more some into the team. But really, just really optimizing and breaking it down from this standpoint, from a bottoms up perspective. And then really what it comes down to for cost of delivery, low shipping cost, right? So like if you have furniture and you're selling furniture, right, the shipping cost is going to be enormous, right? Obviously it's heavy, it's big, it takes up a lot of service area, versus if you were selling, let's say, a lip liner, right? It's light, you can put it in a small package, you can probably ship it, in the US, through USPS, cheapest options like $4, I believe. If you were selling like hoodies like I am that are like £2, then you're gonna look at $10, around $10 per order. So that's kind of like $5 of contribution margin just off that delta. And then high perceived value, right? So this is your ability to have high price relative to the product cost with the high perceived value. And then you have different offers to boost AOV and profit per visitor, right? So this all bakes into your cost of delivery. And then your CAC, right? This is essentially, how efficient are you with your marketing, right? So your AMER could actually be, not that efficient in the grand scheme of things. But if you have a strong repeat purchase rate to make up that delta, your overall blended, MER as a whole can be aligned on your target. Consumable nature, right? So if you were selling, let's say, basic tees like me, like this, like what I'm wearing right now, then this is kind of consumable in the sense that a lot of people buy basic tees. I buy basic tees. Versus if you were selling, like Ridge Wallet, they just sell wallets, right? People really only need one wallet, so they had to create and develop and launch new product categories in order to get that LTV capture. And then if you sell, like, let's say a hair product like a conditioner or a toothpaste or another CPG product, right, you're going to need that on a consistent, monthly, bi-monthly, tri-monthly basis. So that's a consumable nature. And then organic presence, right? Do you have some organic leverage that can overall drive down this overall MER? And then, so like if you were a creator-led brand, right, if you were an influencer, right, or if you just had strong influencer connections, right, then you can essentially generate a lot of organic demand that overall drives your MER a lot higher up, and then drives your overall CAC as a percentage of revenue down, right? And then OpEx, right, is essentially having a lean team. Think contractors, think agencies, think, essentially just utilizing AI, having a lean software stack, right? Not taking on too many subscriptions, looking at the alternatives, right? A good example is like Klaviyo, switching from Klaviyo to like Richpin, or, just things like that. And then just avoiding bad debt, right? You don't want to be caught up with paying, daily remittances and things of that nature, because that's what I got caught up in, early, on in my brand, taking Shopify capital when I didn't really need it, Wayflower loans, things of that nature. But these are kind of the key components that actually back up into this actual P&L. And then I actually have this white paper from Northbeam. So they're an attribution platform. And essentially they did a study for 2025, right, of all their brands on their platform. So this is an aggregate of thousands and thousands of direct consumer brands. And basically it just breaks down, the averages and medians and the overall, index from these brands performance wise, right? So I kind of break down into these different categories here. So industry movers and shakers, right? So this is biggest revenue increases by industry in 2025 by the median. So it's very important that we look at the median, not the actual average, because the median is going to be a more true assessment to actually how brands in this category are operating. Just because averages can be skewed based off one, major brand or one small brand. But as you can see here, sporting goods and fitness had a 16% increase year over year. Food and beverage, 9%. Home and furniture, baby and kids, followed by fashion accessories, health and wellness, beauty and personal care, and then technology. So people are getting more fit, more healthy, more concerned about their wellness, as you can see here. And then actual like supplements are actually only up 4%, but more so indirect is over here. Home and furniture, baby and kids, fashion accessories, things like that nature. Strong and slow performers. Fashion brands saw revenue outpace spend with modest MER gains, keeping growth efficient despite higher CAC. Beauty brands grew revenue faster than spend while slightly improving MER. And then here are some slow performance like food and beverage, health and wellness, baby and kids, things of that nature. So this kind of gives you an insight, from actual data, right? Actual real data to show you guys and kind of tie back to the idea of right category, right time, right trends, etc. Right? So here's some more performance by industry, just in a spreadsheet that you guys can take a look at. Revenue, median shifts, MER, as you can see here. And then let me find the slide that I want to look at. Industry breakdowns by month, baby and kids, fashion accessories. So this for all the clothing brands, as you can see here. A typical brand in 2025 grew, but mostly by buying that growth. On a median basis, spend was up 6.93% year over year and revenue 5.96%, while median MER slipped 1.7%. And median first-time CAC climbed 8.96%. So as you can see, 8.96% is kind of a big jump. But MER was only down relative negative 1.77%. So as you can see, CPMs are higher, but Meta's targeting is trying to make up for that delta with Andromeda. But we still saw minus 1.7% on MER side of things. First time MER, so this is your AMER, acquisition MER, month by month, as you can see here, kind of healthy in the latter end. Just looking at the averages, we had a lot of volatility in the first half of the year, just off of the idea of tariffs and things of that nature. But yeah, this is kind of like the consumer index, the statistics on industries and things of that nature. I'm trying to get to this one slide. Home and furniture, sporting goods and fitness, as you can see here. Median spend is up 25%. That's big. Revenue is up 16%. MER is down minus 6%. But revenue and spend are up substantially. That is very good. Very good. Technology, spend allocation, right? So wallet share. So media mix from year over year was, or 2024 was 53.98%. 2025 was 52.31%. So minus 1.67 points. Spend revenue things of that nature. As you can see, Snapchat got less spend. Microsoft ads got less spend. App Lovin', new channel. That's an area for improvement as well. I believe Triple Whale started pushing out these ad credits. But yeah, this kind of just shows you kind of breakdown, right? Go over here. I'm going to the latter end. Yeah, this kind of statistics by Northbeam. But I'll kind of break down just for fashion and apparel specifically, because I know a lot of my audience is in that niche. So let me look at the takeaway. Treat the fashion vertical as a growth engine with a strict efficiency governor. Scale into months where revenue and MER historically rise together, not just into every promo moment. Treat rising first-time CAC with caution. As acquisition increases, consider shifting focus more into offers, flows, and bundling to increase AOV. Use the monthly curves as your shape benchmark. If your accounts are spending more but your MER and CAC are drifting worse than the median pattern, the problem is in execution, creative offers, pacing, not the category. So as you can see, they're just giving some key insights and takeaways, and that's really what I like in the last sentence there. The problem is in the execution, not the category. So really, it's your ability to go out and execute. Despite the tailwinds and headwinds, but you're still remaining cognizant of the overall macroeconomic trends. But really, the goal of a business is to make money now and in the future and generate substantial free cash flow that can be distributed to owners. And like Alex Ramosi said, no matter what career path you pick in life, it will be hard. So pick something that pays better. This is something that I've been thinking about recently and a lot. And yeah, this is overall how ecom is rigged and how to cheat the game. If you guys want that white paper with all this, let me know. I can drop the link in a Google Drive or something in the description or in the comments. Let me know. If you guys want to work with me one-on-one, apply in the link in the description down below. Until then, I'll see you guys in the next video.